a specific type of user. We're going to use a user that is actually an administrator, so he's going to have access to quite a lot of functionality in the tool. However, the application itself, depending on the different constituency and the different type of users, will actually change a little bit the way that it looks, and as far as options that are available, depending on the rights that the user is going to have. So a lot of the things that we're going to see right now are actually available for somebody that has rights to everything. But for example, if you're a team member, the selections and options are actually going to be a lot less. And the application, what it does, instead of just showing everything that the application can do, and then based on your rights just not letting you do things, it's actually not going to even show stuff. So if you don't have rights, for example, to the project sphere, or you don't have rights to the reporting engine, then you're not going to even see that option available for you in the menus. You're only going to see the stuff that you actually can work with and have rights to. And the whole idea is that the application is trying to do it very simple for the users to do their job. We view this application as something that the users go in and don't spend a lot of time in the tool, but just go in, do whatever it is that they need to do, and then get out of it. It should be something that is very quick for them to see as far as what they need to do, any kind of notification, any kind of highlights that they need to take care of. Go and take care of those things, make sure everything is in line, and just get out of the application. The application on top of everything has a lot of personalization. For example, the user can set their home page. In this case, my home page is set to be the project page, which shows me the list of projects that I've loaded from the database based on parameters that I've done before. So that way, the next time that I go into the application, it actually goes straight into the page that I was working with and designed that is going to be my home page. So I don't have to go and click around in order to get to the areas that I really, really care about. On top of that, when it comes to the customization, and you will see that in a lot of the pages and a lot of the areas that the application has, I will highlight where is it that the user can actually further customize the application to be exactly what it is that they need, and actually hide the things that they don't need. So let's start with the project. So a project is in the system is anything that you actually want to track work to. It can be anything. As far as the application is concerned, there are only two pieces of information that you need to provide in order to create a project, which is the name of the project and where the node that the project is actually coming from. You can actually take it further simple, make it even simpler. So for example, if in your application, in your environment, there's not a lot of project nodes, and it can actually be that there's only one project node, all projects go into that basket, and then the only thing that you'll need to provide is actually the project name. The first view that we have is actually the list of projects. These views are fully customizable, and there's about 260 fields that are available for you to populate with different information. That information can be text fields, can be dates, can be numbers, or end lists. Basically, using them, you can actually define all the information that you want to track for specific projects when it comes to the project itself. So here's an example of a view that I have, just a simple view. And we have, for example, the project status, which is an indicator of green, red, and yellow. I have the project name, the unit priority, or the organization, and so on and so forth. Some of those fields are lists. Some of them are actually date times. Some of them are numbers. And you can actually customize those available fields to anything that you want to track in your organization. And you can actually customize this view. To switch different views, the only thing that you need to do is basically just open the drop-down. The available views are going to be displayed in the drop-down, and then you just need to select another view. And then that information is going to be loaded up. One thing that is different between what we have in the Thin client is that we allow you to organize these views any which way you want. So there is no set order for the fields in the views that you are creating. So if you want to have the project name as the last field in the view, you can have it. If you want to have it in the middle and you want to have the start and end date as the first two fields in the view, you can have that as well. So those views are fully customizable as far as the fields in them and as far as the order of the fields in them. These views are actually defined by the administrator for everybody in the organization. However, a team member is actually going to be able to go and further customize these views to be exactly what they want them to be. So if I'm going to go, for example, to the main project view that I have that has a little bit more views, I'm actually going to be able to customize it. And let's say that, for example, I don't care about the customer field because it's not something that relates to the information that I work with the project. Then I can actually go ahead and hide it. And it actually remember that for the next time that I log in, and the column is not going to be there. The column is still available for view, so you can always bring it back into the view, but by default, it's going to be hidden. So it actually remembers the customization the user does to the specific views as far as which columns they have hidden, and then the next time they go into that view, it remembers that, and those columns are actually going to be hidden and not going to be shown by default. Those views are also sortable by clicking on the column header. And you can also filter by using the filter drop-down from the column header itself. The filters are wildcards, so beginning and ending. So whatever you type in, it's basically going to search for that. And all those columns are actually filterable. Now, once we have the project, I mean, this is going to give us quite a lot of information about the projects, but when you want to work with a specific project and you want to drill down into a project, let me just order it by the priority so it'll be easier. The only thing you need to do is just double-click on the projects that you want to drill down into. So I'm going to drill into the Dominican Republic project. And when I do that, it's actually going to open a new tab that's going to have the detailed information about the project Dominican Republic. Notice that the user interface is actually opening the different things that you're working with in tabs on the top. So basically, if you want to go back to the list of projects, just as easily, you can go and click on the project, and you can see the list of projects, and you can go back to the project that you drill down. And you can open multiple projects if you want to look at multiple of them. So for example, I can double-click the Cayman Islands, and it's going to create another tab with the Cayman Island project information. The advantage of that, again, is we don't want the user to waste time just waiting for a page to load when they've already been in the page. So the page is already loaded. Why do we need to wait for it again? So basically, it opens everything in tabs. They're available. When you flip back and forth, the information is there, including any kind of changes that you're going to make if you make changes before saving them. So it saves a lot of time when it comes to loading those pages and refreshing those pages. It's right there existing in the application itself. So let's look at the project sphere and what do we have here. So the first thing that you'll see is that we have the project name that is displayed. Then we have the project manager and the node that the project is coming from. In this case, it's an engineering technology node on the project side. And then we have some key project indicators that are indicating in 3 levels, good state, warning, and you got to take care of it, this is really bad. Icons, the status of each one of those indicators. The overall is the overall project is basically averaging everything out, and then taking into account the status of the project that has been identified in the status of the project itself. And then we have the budget, which is basically looking at the budget that you have provided for the project, if you have provided one, and then the total cost of your labor and non-labor elements. Schedule is any kind of deviation from the schedule, the project plan that you have in place. Resources is the effort forecast of resources and skills. If every skill assignment that is about to be hit, if it's staffed by a resource or not, if there are any resource shortfalls that you haven't taken care of, that's going to give you a quick indication of that. Scope, risk and issues, if you're using risk and issues, and then the quality of the project itself. These are all basic indicators that give you a quick idea about what state the project is in. And then you can further drill down into the different areas to take care of the different elements. The first tab that we have is the forecast tab. The forecast tab, pretty straightforward. It's our view that where you associate resources to work on a specific project, and it can be either resources or skills. If you don't have a specific resource to do the work, then you can specify a skill as well. And this is where you're going to have that association. This is where you can add new assignments, you can edit assignments, and you can do all the different functionalities that we have as far as with assignments, replacing shortfall, converting the skill, and converting a skill assignment to a resource, and so forth. As you can see, I have a certain selection. In this case, it's showing me all the resources that are loaded into the project. In this case, we don't have any skill assignments. It's only resources. And I have 24 months loaded from the beginning of 2012, just because these are the values in the database, in the demo database. And then the other thing that you'll notice is I don't actually have any colors associated with any of the periods. One thing that we've done that is different than 6.2, it automatically will load any kind of allocation problems on those resource assignments or skill assignments. It will automatically highlight periods that will have problems. If you don't see the highlighted periods, that means that there are no issues with these assignments in those specific periods. It basically takes into account the project's priority, the resource assignments and their allocations to other projects, and it automatically calculates. And if there are any issues, you're actually going to see that inside the effort forecast, so you can actually fix those assignments that you actually have a problem. An example to that is if I look at the Cayman Islands, you can actually see here we have quite a lot of periods that have issues. And the severity of the issues is indicated by the color that you see in the specific cells. Yellow, and those thresholds are fully customizable in the system that I'm looking at right now. Yellow means less than 70% allocation. Between 70 and 90, it's orange, and I think, actually, sorry, it's the opposite. If it's between 90 and 95 allocation, it's yellow. Between 70 and 90, it's orange, and less than 70, it is red. So, but then again, this is fully customizable to the different organizations, and you can set your own thresholds. The view for the effort forecast, again, is fully customizable. As you can see here, I have a very simple view that has organization, project name, resource, the state of the assignment, if it's committed, not committed, depending on if you're using stuff like that, if it's inactive, and the type of the assignment, and then you can actually switch the views as well, and you can create as many views as you want. One thing that we've done in the assignment views is that you can include any fields from resource and project to include in here. So for example, if you're interested in a view that's going to show the assignments and will include the project domain, then you can include the project domain field from the project field, from the project list, and it's going to be displayed in here as well. So it allows you to do quite a lot of things as far as creating exactly the type of views that you're interested in to work with. The other tab that we have, the demand analysis. Now, this is something that we didn't have before when it's new. It's basically showing you for that specific project a little bit of information about summarizing up all the demand that it has in the different periods that you've loaded, the allocation that each period has, and any kind of shortfall, and then it actually gives it to you also in a graph format. In this case, we see that there's actually no shortfall whatsoever in any of the periods. Also in the graph, it would have seen some red in any period that would have had a shortfall. But if we're going to look at the Cayman Island project, for example, and switch to demand analysis, then you're actually going to see that there is some shortfall, and it actually starts highlighting the different periods that have problems. Again, those thresholds are customizable, and you have the same three colors from yellow to orange to red, red indicating the severity of allocation to that specific period. And as you can see, we can actually see the different things. Some of the charts that we have, as you can highlight over the legend, you're actually going to see the area being highlighted in the chart. So, and the other thing that you can do is actually filter on it, which is basically you can take out something, taking out the shortfall, notice that it's grayed out, and then I'm only looking at allocation, then you can bring it back in, and you can filter on specific elements. This is basically something that we're going to expand on in the future. We're going to introduce more and more built-in charts based on the data that you're pulling out from the system, and it'll give you quite a lot of functionality right there and there in the application with no need to export to Excel and doing your own stuff or using the reporting engine to generate maybe some simple reports. So the simple reports, we're going to start introducing more and more of them into the application itself. The next thing, the scheduler. I'm actually going to go to something that has a little bit more tasks in it. So if you guys have seen the scheduler from the previous version or the current version that we have in production, we've expanded on it a lot. We've added a huge amount of functionality, and we find quite a lot of the functionality that it had in it. One thing to remember, we still think that in order to create big project schedules, you're probably better off with a desktop application such as Microsoft Project. But if you need to create something that is a simple project plan, and you don't mind the little user interface and that you have in the web, the scheduler that we have here is actually very, very powerful. It has quite a lot of functionality, and it also has the ability for you to actually import a Microsoft Project file and load the plan into the project, so you don't have to create everything manually by yourself. But I'm going to show some of the highlights of what we can do and the things that we've added as far as functionality to the scheduler. So the first thing is if you're actually going to go and double-click on a task, you actually get the task information tab. That gives you quite a lot of information that allows you to edit it in the pop-up. So you have the task name, the percent complete, the duration, the start and end date, and so forth. You can actually change the predecessor to the task, and you also include the type of dependency that's going to happen. Again, a lot of those things you can actually do within the Gantt chart itself, but you actually can have the ability to do it in a pop-up dialog that some people prefer. Another thing is that you can actually assign resources to the tasks directly from within here. And an interesting thing is that the list of resources that you have is actually the resources that are assigned to the project. So those people that have been assigned to the projects are now available for you to actually assign them to tasks and start allocating them into the different tasks. So again, you can create it actually from within the pop-up dialog that we have. We're carrying the same functionality that we have before, which is that everything saves automatically. So as you make those changes, it's very live feed into the system backend, and it saves all your changes, and they become available for everybody to see as soon as you make those changes, making the application very, very dynamic. The other thing that we can do, we still have the same functionality as far as if you want to create the dependencies between two tasks, just dragging and dropping. While you do that, you'll notice that the pop-up stays, which before it would actually disappear after a few seconds. And then when you release, it actually creates the dependency. The other thing that we'll have is you can actually change the percent completed with this little bar over here that you can actually do it within the Gantt. And again, you'll notice that the task itself changes its color depending on how much of the task was completed. The other thing that we've done, which is very different than in the past, we've added a huge amount of columns that you can work with. So I'm just going to change a little bit over here. So as you can see, we have the start, the finish, the duration. I've disabled the auto save just because I don't want to destroy my demo database. But those triangles that you see actually say that the information hasn't been saved, which could happen, for example, if you lose internet connection. But as soon as it's going to be restored, it's actually going to save everything. In this case, I actually intentionally disabled it. So these are the default columns that you have. Notice that you have the assigned resources as available column, which you can edit inside the column itself. So you can open it, and again, you'll see the list of resources, and then you can check the one that you want, put the percent of how much they need to work on this thing, and then save and close. And you basically created a resource assignment to that task with a percent of how much they're supposed to work on it. But there are quite a lot of columns that you can add. And as you can see here, there's the early start and late finish, so you can have lag, and you can have mandatory finish and so forth. There's quite a lot of information that a lot of columns that were not available before that we've added and are available for you to use inside the Gantt. Again, making it a lot easier for you to to track things that we weren't able to track before. The other things that we have, we have the regular. You can add tasks, you can delete tasks, you can search for tasks. If the plan is pretty big, you can filter based on the task name. You can collapse and expand everything, as well as zooming in to periods. Notice that as you zoom in, the quarters will change into months, and then as you keep zooming in, you can actually go all the way down to the weeks and even days if you want to do it. So depending on how big the plan is, you can actually zoom in and out to make it more comfortable to work with. And then, of course, we have the button which we used to have before, which is the zoom to fit, that automatically shows you the whole plan as it is. The other thing is that as you are hovering over a task, you'll see a little bit of information. Let's start, end, and progress. And then if there's going to be any kind of mandatory start, that information is also going to show up in a pop-up. A new thing that we've added is the resource utilization view, the resource utilization histogram. And when you pop it, it actually shows you all the resources that you have assigned to this project and how much you have allocated them to the different tasks. And the colors in the histogram will change based on how much they are actually being utilized compared to how much they've been assigned in the different periods. So just to show an example, if I'm going to take Masner John, and let's just add him to another task, for example, here. I'm going to do it from here, and we're going to go to Masner John, and I'm going to put him at 100%. Sorry. Somehow locked on me. We should be able to see him now if I change the right task. So as you can see, during that task that I've added is now actually changing into the red, and that's because utilization went to 125% of what was available for the project at that time. So that is something new that we've added. And of course, you still have the old stuff, highlighting critical paths, and looking for tasks, the filtering for tasks with a certain percentage of percent completed and tasks that are overdue. You still have all that functionality available in here. A new thing that we've added is the team tab. It basically lists all the resources that are part of the project and then which tasks they're actually working on. And if there are no tasks, it's actually going to show just the assignments. In this case, you actually see that, for example, Jackson Andrew is working on design and then build, and then at a certain point he's actually working on build and test at the same time and build and verification at the same time. And again, it makes it very easy just to see what resources are working on when it comes to the project. You can also add team members from within this view, and what it's basically going to create is just an empty assignment in the effort forecast that you can later on go and fill with values as far as what the forecast is required. And of course, then you can also use them in the scheduler to assign them to the different tasks. Risk and issues is something that we had from before, but we've combined it into one. And it basically allows you to track any kind of risk or issue element to a specific project. What we have is also that for every risk and issue, you can actually have a discussion where the people that are involved with the project are actually going to be able to are going to be able to come in and put comments and respond to them when it comes to different risk or issue element. As well as we can actually turn on an audit feature, which will track in the backend any changes that have happened on that specific risk and issue element from any change that happened to it. Changes to date, to scope, to impact and probability, who is it assigned to, and then any kind of changes to the description and action. In the view itself, you get something very quick as far as who created it and what was the last modified date and time. But in the audit, you actually get quite a lot of detailed information as far as every little change that has happened and when and who has made the change, which is something that you can turn on or turn off if it's something that you guys don't prefer to use. Document is something that is new. And the document is basically, we've included a document repository for your project. So if you need to attach documents to a project charter, or anything that has to do with the project that you want to keep track of and for people to collaborate on, then you actually can do it now, which is something that you couldn't have done it before. Basically, you can add any kind of file that you want into the project space. This file is actually going to be saved in the backend inside the PDWare system. And it's going to be available for anybody that has rights to view the project information. So even if you have a team member and you give them rights to see the project information, they'll be able to see those documents and actually work with them. By default, the limitation that we've done is 4 megabytes as far as the size of the files, but this is something that can be customizable, and you can actually increase it to no limits at all. Just take into account the more files you have, the bigger files you have, the more space that you're going to need in the back end in order to store those things. We do zip those things before we send them into the back end to save on bandwidth and storage, and it's very, very quick. But you do have to take that into account. Now, again, these files are actually stored inside the PDWare system, so it's not like it's storing them into a network drive or SharePoint drive and just points to them. It is actually saving the files inside the PDWare system, and they're becoming available inside PDWare. One thing about the files, you'll notice that you can always download the files and you can always delete the files and remove them from the repository. And the delete, I just want to touch on it because it's something that we've done throughout the application, which is something new. In the past in PDWare, if you would delete something, it will pop up a warning message that says you're about to delete something. Are you sure you want to delete? And if you say yes, it will ask you again, are you sure you really want to delete everything related to this is going to be destroyed? And if you said yes, it would actually go ahead and delete it. And a lot of times we would get back users saying, oh yeah, but I didn't really mean to delete it. But the data is still gone, and then you have to go from the transaction databases and the log files in order to go and restore the information that they've actually removed through the system. What we've done in the new PDWare7i is that when you delete an element, whatever it is, a document, an assignment, a project, a resource, whatever it is that you delete, it's still going to ask, are you sure you want to delete? But it doesn't really delete it from the database if you answer yes. It basically marks it for deletion. What it does is actually sets in the database that this record has been set to be deleted. And the default time span that you have is 14 days, and after 14 days, it's actually there's an engine that goes and scrubs everything that is older than 14 days and actually removes them from the database. But during those 14 days, which is the default period, you can actually go inside the system and undelete those records. And then when you undelete them, everything that is relating to them is going to come back. So if you do have an issue that somebody says, oh, I didn't really mean to delete it and it was a mistake, but we deleted it, then it's a lot easier. There's no reason to go to databases, log files, or anything like that. It's just clearing the flag from those records, and that element is going to pop back into the system as if it was never deleted. So this is something new that we've done, and we actually think that's going to be very, very useful for you guys. And the grace period is actually 14 days is the default. We thought that will be enough, but you can actually change that. You can make it shorter if you wanted to, and you can make it a little bit longer. We don't think there's a reason to make it longer than 14 days, but because people should notice that something has been deleted that shouldn't have. But you could make it longer. And the last thing is the discussion. It's basically a discussion thread relating to the project that everybody that is associated with the project, resources assigned to the project, project managers, project sponsors, anybody that has rights to the node that the project is coming from can actually go in here and comment on the project. In the first iteration, this discussion thread right now is flat, which means that everybody just comments and it gives it in chronological order of what people have said. The second iteration that we're going to have is actually going to be nested discussion, which means response to a specific comment are actually going to be nested, and you're going to be able to see the structure that you're going to have. Right now, it is flat. So this is as far as the project detail information. Now, you saw that there are certain things that I took for granted, like, for example, the list of projects that I'm looking at, or the periods that I'm looking at, which is 24 months. And the way that you can actually control that is through your filter spec, your data filter spec. And in this case, you'll notice that I have several things in here that I can specify. I have the project OBS, which I can drill down to specific projects node in order to go and select them, and I have also in the resource OBS. In this example that I've used the all in all. In the application that we have in PDWare7i, when you select all in all, it doesn't mean give me everything in the system from projects and everything in the system from resource. The all in all actually means give me everything I have rights to read from the project side and everything I have rights to read from the resource. So it makes it very easy if you have multiple nodes that you have rights to read, and instead of going and multi-selecting everything, just clicking on the all in all, it will give you everything that you have rights to see, and you don't have to go and drill down for it. And basically what it makes the OBS is just as a filtering element. So if you want to filter on something further, you can actually do that by going and selecting that specific node and then clicking on the filter. You can also filter on the start, period type, number of periods. You can hide zero demands if you want it. And then you can also add any filter from anything that relates to the project or resource list. You can actually add custom filters for specific columns. And then what it does is it doesn't even load from the database information that doesn't answer the filter spec that you specified. One thing about the project and resource OBS is the color of the nodes indicate what rights you have to it. So if it is, and the boldness of it. So if it's green, it means that you have rights to make changes in it. If it is bold, that means that you can make changes. If it's not bold, you cannot make changes. And then if it's black, except for the all node, if it's black text, it means that you don't have rights to even read what's in that specific node branch. So again, make it very, very easy as far as filtering. And this is available from the top menu. It's something that in the past we used to have it as a pop-up panel. This one is actually now you can bring it into view very easily, and it doesn't obstruct the field and the view that you're actually working with. One more thing just to add about the list of elements that you're seeing. We're still using paging by default, which is 50 rows in each page. And as you can see over here, it says looking at page 1 of 1, and I'm showing projects 1 through 19. We do have the ability with this new framework that we're using to change it into an infinite scroll, which means that you actually don't have a paging. You actually have a scroll bar on the right. And as you scroll down, it is feeding more and more information from the server. The ability to use that depends if you're bringing it in-house and on the infrastructure that you're going to put it in. If it's a decent database engine and a server for the web application, then you're going to be able to do that. If it is not, it's just not going to have enough power in order to do that dynamically, especially when you have multiple users. So at that point, we revert back to the default, which is using pages, which, as you can see, the pages load very, very quickly. It takes a few seconds, not even a second, in most cases, to load the pages from the system. Now let's go to the resources. Oh, one more thing. We do still have the project demand view with the colors automatically popping up as far as the allocation of the resources to each one of the projects. And then you can double-click, look at the assignments for that specific project, and then analyze them and see what exactly is going on. For the resources, we have the same kind of thing. We have the list of resources, again, depending on the nodes that you have selected. As you can see, the user interface is it's a lot faster than in the past. scrolling and spanning, and even if you have 100 and something columns in the view, you're going to be able to move between all of them very, very quickly, where in the past it was a little bit slow. And then, of course, you can see the resources that you have issues, and the two types of issues, of course. Underutilization, which is the dark blue, and then overutilization, which is the red. Again, those thresholds for those colors are customizable by the administrators, and you can set it to anything you want. Resource capacity, as well, is just a view. So that's as far as the resources and the project. Now let's look at the team member actually, before I go to the team member, all those different views that you have are actually exportable, and you'll see the little export button that you have. And when you click on it, you're going to get this notification that says the export is being generated for you, and you'll be notified when it's ready for download. When the export is ready for download, you're actually going to get a notification that the export is available. What it does is actually creates a file in the backend and puts it into the PDWare system, marked with the user that have created it, and then basically the user can go ahead and keep working with the application, and then when it's ready, he's actually going to get a notification that, as long as it's going to take, he's going to get a notification that the export is ready for download, and then you actually can go into your own document space, and it's going to take a time before we're going to get that resource capacity. But we can see the stuff that I've exported before, and then you can basically just go ahead and download the export that you want to download into your own machine. And those files actually can be opened in an Excel, and you can actually go ahead and modify them in Excel and do whatever it is that you want to. All right, let's close that. By default, is once you download, we actually do that. You can that those documents are going to be removed from the PDWare system, but it's something that you can change and leave them in the system for a little bit longer than that, or say that the user actually has to explicitly delete a file before it's going to be removed. Now, for the team members, I'm just going to touch on the time tracking a little bit. Some of the changes that we've done for the time tracking, which we didn't have before. It looks like my connection is slowing down a little bit. You'll notice that the user interface is very similar to what we had before. We still have the period bar on the top with the different periods. We have the list of timesheets, and then we have the timesheet detail itself. Some of these colors are going to change. They're going to be more muted, not to take away from the area where you actually have to put the values in. They're very, very bright right now. But some of the changes that we've done, first of all, you'll notice that the days have a date on top of them, which in the past it was just saying the day of the week. Now we're actually seeing the date. The other thing is that the list of timesheets for each one of the periods that you select is actually it's not a set size. If you have more timesheets, if you create adjustment timesheets, then this list is going to grow up. And what it allows us to do by when we did those changes is that you're never going to get a situation where the size of the area of the timesheet detail is too small, and you have a small scroll bar and you can't really move. Here, it's actually going to keep growing, and you're going to get a big scroll bar on the side. So the page actually doesn't shrink the timesheet detail. It's just that you're going to have a scroll bar on the right to scroll down, and the size is never shrinking. It's just the page keeps expanding, making it a lot easier to use for the team members. We still have the same direct entry within the cells where you can put the values. One thing that we have done, which is new, the timesheet now is no longer locked into the week. So if it's no longer Monday through Sunday, it is by default if those are your fiscal weeks. If you went and changed your fiscal weeks, then this will change. So now the time tracking is actually happening based on what you have defined as your fiscal weeks in the system. If your fiscal week starts at a Sunday, then the time tracking will start at a Sunday. And if your fiscal week is 14 days, then you'll have 14 days to track time. So it's no longer bound by having to be just 1 week. It is depending on the length and definition of your fiscal weeks in the system. The other thing that we've done is we gave you the ability to the administrator to define that the time tracking is either several options. One, you can force them to track for the whole period, so there's no definition for the days. So all these days columns are actually hidden, and you're only going to have the week total to put values in. The other option is, of course, the default, which is you have both. You can put a value for the week, and you can put a value for the days. And the last option that you can say is that to prevent time tracking on the weekend. And then if a day is the weekend, it is actually not going to be available for, it's not going to be available in the view to put values on. By default, we allow tracking in the weekend. So you can hide the weekends, you can hide all the days, or you can have everything like we see in here. One thing about the weekends, this doesn't go based on the weekends where the user is. It goes based on the weekends where the server system is residing. We know that it's a limitation right now. It is something that we're going to work on to improve in the next version. But right now, the weekends are defined by where the server is residing. The other thing that we've done, there's going to be quite a lot of administration that you can set up in the system for the administrators. A lot of the user-defined lists are going to be available here, as well as users and rights and nodes you're going to be able to define. But what we've also done is this little question mark that you have over here, which is we've created a custom help system. And what the custom help system allows you to do is that we're going to have a rudimentary help definition for each of the pages that the user is going to go into. And when they hit that question mark, that panel will pop up. And it's going to have a quick explanation of the page that they're looking at, what exactly they can do, and what are the information that you're going to have. And then you can go ahead and make changes. As you can see, I actually made a change in the file. In here. These help files are actually residing in their own space in the application, in the server, and we are giving them as pure HTML with CSS, and then you can actually go and customize them to anything that you want. So for example, if you guys are customizing the fields that are available in views, and you want to have the definition of those views in the project help, then you can go to the project list page that we have, and you can put whatever it is that you want. It's pure HTML. You can customize it with images. You can customize it even with videos. And it basically becomes something that you can incorporate any kind of online help that you want into the tool. Now, the basic one that we're going to have is going to have quite a lot of information in it. But if you want to further add to it, you could do it as well. So then the users will actually recognize some of the things that are specific to your environment. And it's going to make it a lot easier for them to come to terms with the application and actually start using it. This is a basic dashboard that we have. There's quite a lot of reports that and custom reports that we do for clients. It is extremely powerful in the way that it allows you to drill down into the information. Those of you that have seen it know how powerful it is as far as drilling down within charts to specific ranges or specific elements, and then as a result having all the different reports deriving information from the filters that you have applied in one specific area, and then seeing exactly how it affects everywhere else. So for example, the filters that I've applied here, I can actually go and see what the skill utilization that is being used in those different projects in the time periods that I'm looking. So in this case, it's like 3 different skills that are actually being used. And then you'll notice that what we've done that is different than in the past is that you have this period range selector. And what it allows you to do is something that we couldn't do before, which is basically selecting and filtering across years. So in this case, if I want to do to Q2 of 2015, I can easily do that. Where in the past, you couldn't do that. When you select the Q2 and Q3 and Q4, it'll be Q2, Q3, and Q4 of 2014 and 2015. You'll be missing the Q1. Now you can actually select ranges, which is something, again, something that wasn't available before, but is available now. And if I, for example, remove the Q periods, and you'll notice that I can actually filter also on months that span different years and then see the result, which is something new that we didn't have before that makes it very easy to filter on ranges when they go across years. We have a few more reports that we didn't have before, like compliance. If you have timesheets, they're going to be included in here. In this case, we have quite a lot of timesheets there. So the last one is we've included a pivot export inside Qlik. Again, making it very easy for you to create pivot reports and then export them to Excel and generate charts out of them. So those of you that have seen Qlik before, you guys know that you can add custom reports in here using the information that is already available. But then that means that it becomes part of the report, and then it's not that easy. If you want to create something new, you have to create something new all the time. By giving you the ability to create pivot, you can actually include any information that you want into the pivot report and then just have it created for you. So for example, in this case, I created a pivot that has the domain as the project dimension, the resource and skills as resource dimension, quarter in the time scale, and then the actual and baselines. And then I can, if I want to change instead of actuals and baseline just to be the forecast, then just by clicking on it, I can actually get that report. I don't have to create a new one, and then I can export it and work with it. The changes that you make here are actually going to be saved for that user, and it makes it very easy the next time that I come in to get the values that I'm interested in based on the filters that I'm applying. So again, a lot of the power that Qlik has, we still have, but we've actually improved on it. We added a few more things. And also, you have the ability actually to search across the whole report for specific things that you want to look for. So if you're looking for specific projects, you can actually do that using the search element.